As I said at the top of the program, this week we're going to talk to teachers and school administrators about the key issues they see in education in 2017. So joining us first, we have Katherine Joyce. Katherine is the Executive Director of the North Carolina Association of School Administrators, and we have Dr. Rodney Shotwell. Dr. Shotwell is the current president of the North Carolina School Superintendents Association and also superintendent of Rockingham County Schools. Thank you both for being here. I want to jump right in. We have a lot of issues I want to talk about. I mentioned the special session in the ed lines, there were two bills that were introduced. Katherine, I'm going to start with you that we thought might actually cover some of the things that I know your group and superintendents are interested in. One is the K-3 class size issue that came up out of last year's budget. Tell me a little bit about what that is and sort of what the concerns are from superintendents.
So in last year's state budget, the General Assembly changed requirements for staffing in kindergarten through third grade. And what that means is that all school districts have to spend more of their teacher allotment dollars in those early grades, K through 3. They have to have smaller classes. And they eliminated the exceptions to those smaller class sizes that had previously been in place. So what that's going to do is force our school districts to actually have larger classes in grades 4 through 12, as well as it will hurt their ability to hire specials teachers in the areas of PE, music, and art, which are all very critical to our elementary students.
So basically, in order to meet that requirement that sort of showed up in the budget last year, again, it could potentially put at risk those kind of specialty teachers as well as increased class sizes in the later grades.
Absolutely. We see that as an unintended consequence. We don't think the legislature realized the impact it will have on those other teachers. The focus is right, focusing on early grades and making sure they have small classes which are beneficial to students. But in working with school leaders, we want them to actually delay implementation of that mandate, and let's work through what's the right solution so all students have the teachers they need.
Rodney, I want to go to you. One of the other issues that we thought might come up in the special session was calendar, something that superintendents like you have been asking for a long time. Calendar flexibility. Right now, the public schools in North Carolina basically are mandated by the General Assembly, by the state, on when they can start, when they can stop, how many hours, something that public charter schools, private schools, and others don't have to comply with. Sort of what are your thoughts on that as a superintendent of how that affects you?
Well, it affects us in a way of being able to work with our community college. It works for first semester because their classes pretty much start about the same time that we start school, maybe about a week before. But the problem comes in second semester. A lot of times we're not finished with our first semester until about the third week of January, and the community college has already started their second semester classes by the first week or a little bit after that. And the problem happens is if the student doesn't have a community college block at the same time that they're taking a class, maybe first, like if they're having a first period, but then the class they need second semester is during second period, they are already enrolled in a second period class for 3 more weeks before they can get over there.
So the real issue is you're trying to do, as a superintendent and principals, are trying to do what's best for the students, give them the best academic experience, but you're handcuffed in a lot of ways by sort of the mandates around calendar.
Yes, sir. And I've been around long enough to see before it changed in 2004, and then we had some weather exemptions where we were able to start about the 15th of August, which is reasonable. I know what happened. There were several school districts that started July 30th, and that really kind of got the ball rolling. And then there were some other economic issues dealing with the coast, but it really comes down to local control. If folks in your local area don't want it to happen, they're going to make sure the Board of Education doesn't vote for it.
Right. All right. I want to switch gears on and ask you about principal pay. There is in fact, we're going to pull it up on the screen right now. We have recommendations coming out of a committee of the General Assembly to look at potentially boosting principal pay, which currently ranks where, Katherine?
50th in the nation out of 51 states, including the District of Columbia.
So what do y'all think about it? I'd like to know your thoughts from you and your members, and to hear from you as well, Rodney. What are y'all thinking about in terms of, again, what we need to do and what the General Assembly has on the table?
So what the General Assembly Study Committee has outlined include some positive steps for improving principal pay in North Carolina, and we're very appreciative that they've taken this look at a very critical issue and outlined some positive steps. There is one of the recommendations which school leaders do have concerns about, and that is a proposal to shift principal pay funding to a block grant. And that would take the authority away from the state to set a base floor for what each principal should be paid, and shift that to each superintendent having to negotiate salaries and contracts with every principal in the state. And so we're concerned that if that occurs, there will be even less incentive for teachers who want to become school leaders to move into administration because they don't know what their salary could be.
I'm guessing you feel the same way, Rodney? You don't want to have that extra responsibility of having to negotiate separate contracts with every principal you have to hire?
Well, I think it creates a problem that, okay, well, you know, Johnny over here is making about $10,000 more than I am, and our schools are roughly the same size and same issues. Why was the contract over there negotiated more? Or somebody who negotiated it 2 years ago and now it's 2 years later and the going rate is a little bit higher. I think it's going to cause some issues there. But what I'm dealing with right now is I have 3 principals who are being paid on the teacher's salary schedule because it pays more than the principal schedule does.
So we've got some issues to address. So I think one of the things I've heard from your group and Katherine from you as well is you like the idea of having tied to a schedule, like the teacher schedule, but you do want to have some flexibility on things like incentives for hard to staff areas. Maybe a county like yours, where you might have a little more of a challenge of recruiting people. I'm not sure if you have more challenges than say a Wake or Mecklenburg. I'm guessing you probably do.
Well, I think everybody has a hard time because a school leader. Next to the teachers are the core of what's happening in our schools. But you have to have a good leader in place for those teachers to rally around and work together as a team. And when you're competing with sometimes supplements that are $25,000 for a high school principal in one county, and you're only offering 5 to 8%, it makes a big difference.
Right. One of the things that's going to come up, obviously, this is a long session. For those who don't follow it as closely as you do, Katherine, that means this is when the two-year budget is set. So we're going to be talking about the entire budget and the lack of resource or the resources that our schools are needed. Groups like yours, I know I've said that you thought there's not enough. One of the things I hear often from legislators, just heard it yesterday, as a matter of fact, that school superintendents like Rodney will always tell me that they don't have any money, but they always do. They got plenty of money. What do y'all think about that?
I would say that they need to look at the actual trend that's happened in our public school funding and how it's spent. If you look at our state dollars going to public schools, 1% goes to central office administration. And that's where superintendents and their leadership team, that's where they are housed to support 2,600 individual schools in the state and 115 districts.
Right.
So it's a very lean administrative amount of dollars that we get from the state.
And just real quick, Rodney, you mentioned the fund balance, which is the money that you talk about that you can kind of keep. What has happened to yours in just the last? And just give me real quick on what's happened with you.
Well, we had built the fund balance up to about $13.5 million for a rainy day because we knew some hard times were coming. But now we're down to almost $2 million a year. I've got 600 less employees than I did in 2007.
Well, thank you both for being here. We have so many more of this we could talk about. I hope you'll come back and talk to us some more. But when we come back, we're going to be joined by a Durham teacher and the head of a group that helps give voice to teachers in North Carolina. But first, as we go to break, see if you can answer this question. In 2008, there were 244 of our 2,400 principals at the top step of the state school pay schedule. How many were there in 2016?